Good Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Schedule released last night. We'll talk a little bit about the Browns schedule. Joe Thomas, Browns Hall of Fame offensive lineman, on what he sees in Dawand Jones.
Well, it's never been performance or athleticism that's held Dawand back, right? It's been the injuries that he's sustained. And so I think that's really the big question mark for him moving forward. But I've got an opportunity the last couple seasons to develop a little bit of a relationship with him, and he's super motivated. He wants to come in great shape, because I think being in great shape is really important to staying healthy, right? Being on top of your body and knowing your body inside and out and understanding, like, hey, this little soreness that I got, this little tight hamstring here, I need to take care of that right now before it trickles into something else. And I think he's understanding that, and he is so motivated to take over that left tackle position. He was a basketball player growing up. That was kind of his first love. And so he's got all the talent and athleticism that you could possibly want. Obviously, he's a mountain of a man. You know, he's like 7'5", 480 pounds, and he dances around like a ballerina. So he's exactly the type of player that you wanted left tackle. He's super smart. He's super driven and motivated. And so I'm hoping that he's built that routine to make sure that his body can be that finely tuned Lamborghini that there's no way he would ever fit into, that he can be then for the Browns this season to hold that left tackle spot for 17 games plus some playoff games.
Well, and if Jones can do it and stay healthy, it goes a long way towards helping that Browns offense. John Daigle, what he sees in Quinshon Judkins, Browns' second pick in the second round.
Quinshon Judkins is Nick Chubb. Cleveland clearly has a type, with Judkins checking it at 6 foot, 221 pounds, ran a 4.48 40 time at the combine, and benched 225 pounds 24 times in front of everyone. He had 16 touchdowns in all 3 collegiate seasons, not to mention 290-plus touches at 19 and 20 years old. Again, a short, explosive running back, heavy one. This is just Nick Chubb all over again.
Well, and Browns fans and the Browns organization, Kevin Stefanski, would sign up for that, as would whomever is playing quarterback. Again, if Quinshon Judkins is of that, good things ahead for the Browns. Tom Pelissero with the Browns handling of Shedeur Sanders in the offseason.
I have no doubt that he's going to come in and he's going to do things the right way in terms of how he is in meetings and how he is on the practice field. I would say let's see what's happening if we get into June and July and Shedeur is, getting the third, fourth reps. Maybe he rises before that. If he doesn't, then I think, Rich, you're going to hear less of the, boy, Shedeur's not that bad. And what that's very quickly going to turn into is, why isn't Shedeur getting more reps? Why isn't he getting a real opportunity to win the job, which you wouldn't have that conversation about any other fifth-round pick. And that's one of the many reasons that certain teams were a little bit skittish based on their experience through the pre-draft process. And knowing when you bring in a guy who's that high profile, it's going to turn the entire conversation surrounding a quarterback competition that should be relatively straightforward. But is Shedeur Sanders going to get his opportunity to show what he can do? Can he beat out Dillon Gabriel? Can he beat out Kenny Pickett? Can he beat out Joe Flacco? There's nothing saying that he can't. But again, we'll get a better idea once those veterans are out on the practice field, how they're dividing those reps and trying to manage a quarterback competition. Because I know I've heard coaches say before, there's no real quarterback competitions. We all know going in kind of how this is going to go. You very quickly get that sense. Let's see how Kevin Stefanski sets it up through the course of the process. Who gets those reps in June, July, and in the preseason games?
And again, for the quarterback competition for 4, 2 rookies, 2 veterans, we'll see. Have never had that under the Kevin Stefanski regime here with the Browns. We will talk plenty more about the Browns with Tim Bielik, Damon, Wolfe coming up in a few minutes. Brian Windhorst, he is ESPN's national NBA analyst, talking about what happened to the Cavs in the Cavs-Pacers series.
There's just no way that they could have seen this coming. Certainly they respected the Pacers as an opponent. They knew that the Pacers were going to be a difficult matchup for them in certain aspects of it, but they just were mentally taken out of this series. I mean, you can point, I suppose, to the fact that there was some injuries, and definitely some of their star players weren't at their best, but the Pacers got inside their head. They wore them down. Their strategy was really to apply pressure to the Cavs guards. And, the Cavs deal with that and deal with their undersized guards by just overwhelming the teams with offense. But in fact, the Pacers applied so much full court pressure and so much ball pressure that it got them out of their offense, got them out of their flow. Malika, at the end last night, the Cavs just stopped passing. And when you watch the Cavs during the season when they won 64 games, they were one of the best passing teams in the league. They basically reduced them to just sort of a shell of themselves. And so part of that's on the Cavs, but a lot of it is owed to the strong play and game plan of the Pacers.
Yes, and you could also say that the Cavs played the Pacers style of basketball. And, series are about imposing your will. And the Pacers imposed their will on the Cavs. That's why the Cavs are sitting home and the Pacers are playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. All right, next weekend is Memorial Day. That's really the first barometer. Okay, we've seen enough of Major League Baseball at Memorial Day that we can make some assessments. So the MLB Network's International Talk Group talking about what they have seen and how they think this American League Central shakes out.
Any one of these four teams, if they get hot, can be right there. We saw them last year in the postseason, what Detroit was able to do, what Cleveland was able to do. I mean, Cleveland was close to the Yankees, and it could have went either way if it wasn't for a big Juan Soto home run. So, I think what we're seeing is everybody feeling like they can compete with anybody at any given night for the most part. And in that Central, to have four teams above 500 to be playing as well as they are right now. I love Kansas City. I love what they have going there. And, of course, I think Detroit is, the premier team in the American League. So I just think that this is just so great for the game when we have a division that's not a wash. We don't have one team at the top or maybe 2 teams and the other 3 stink. Nope, we got 4 good teams and one team that's in a rebuild mode for a little while here. But other than that, this Central is exciting, and it's going to be down to the wire again. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
AL Central has not had a team in the World Series since 2016.
And again, the Guardians with the day off, they will head to Cincinnati to play the Reds, open up a 3-game series for the weekend. Tomorrow, it'll be Tanner Bybee taking on Brady Singer. That's your starting pitching matchup. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Browns are up first. It will be Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We begin by talking Browns former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky and front office type Louis Riddick on ESPN SportsCenter weighing in with the Browns' great quarterback debate.
If I'm the Browns, Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders will be my starting quarterback.
Why?
Yeah, because I either want to see if I struck gold and lucked into it like teams like a Derek Carr did for the Raiders or a Andy Dalton did for the Cincinnati Bengals or a Jalen Hurts did for the Eagles.
Russ did for the Seahawks.
Exactly. So I want to know if one of those guys, or I have 2 first-round picks next year, and I want to get to one of those 2 first-round picks for a quarterback next year. So I'm starting one of those rookies, and they're going to play the great majority of my season.
For me, I think the question becomes who's really making the decision about which quarterback's going to start.
Go on.
Okay, because offensive coordinators and head coaches want to win games. So if Joe Flacco is out there and he's leading the charge and this offense is looking pretty good in training camp, Kevin Stefanski's going to go, hey, Mr. Haslam, Joe Flacco's the best quarterback we got. Well, if him and Andrew Berry go, hey, but you know what? we just kind of want to take a look at Dylan, we want to take a look at Shedeur, and we want to see what we got here. I think that's the battle right there.
With that, let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Playing Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, I understand wanting to see the rookie quarterbacks. I don't want to see them until they're ready to play and deemed ready to play. And I go back to what I said, week 4 and 5 last year when they kept saying Deshaun Watson gives us the best chance to win at quarterback. How do you sell that to the locker room? These guys are out there practicing. They know what they see. So you got to give the guy that gives you a chance to win, no matter what's expected win total-wise.
Yeah, and I do think with what's going on with the quarterbacks, the next couple months are obviously going to be interesting to watch when it comes to just the hierarchy of the position and who really rises up during training camp and the preseason. And I think if it's close between, let's say, Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders, if it's close, and even if Shadeur's just a little bit better, I think you would. If I'm the Browns, I would give the nudge to Flacco just because, he's got the experience, having done it before, and it gives Shedeur Sanders a little more time to develop before you decide, it's time to throw him in there and see what he's got. But if you get to training camp and say either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders are head and shoulders better than Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, I don't know how likely that is, but say that happens, then by all means go with the rookie and give him a shot. Let's see what happens out there. Obviously, with the schedule coming out last night, we're going to talk about that shortly. That September with the Bengals, Ravens, Packers, Lions, and then in early October, the Vikings and the Steelers. That is an absolutely brutal 6-game gauntlet for any quarterback, no matter how good they are, let alone a guy who is getting used to the NFL, getting used to the NFL speed. So I think for that reason, I would lean more veteran early. Again, unless one of these rookies play so well that you can't possibly keep them on the bench to start the season.
Yeah, if a rookie's going to start a quarterback, he's going to have to earn it. You don't. That's the way locker rooms respect you. If you go out and you earn it. Here's what you're talking about. So, and it is brutal. The beginning of the Browns schedule, brutal. Again, no national games. We'll talk about that in a minute. They do have the international game in London. But for the most part, all 1 o'clock on Sundays. So it's Bengals, Ravens, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Steelers for 6. The Vikings being an international game in London. Then you got the Dolphins and the Patriots before the bye. You got the bye week in week 9. Then it's Jets, Ravens, Raiders, Niners, Titans, Bears, Bills, Steelers, Bengals. Only 4 o'clock games are the Ravens at home, and then the West Coast game. Other than that, 1 o'clock Sunday. The London game is 9:30. But to your point, that is a brutal first, and I would say the Steelers. I know they're expected to be down a little bit potentially from where they've been. First 6 games, brutal, and if you're going to put a rookie in one of those 6, they better be ready. I think that's the reason you traded for Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett may very well be the starter week 1.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I think these next couple of months are all about. We got to see it play out. We got to see how these guys, how they look in OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, preseason, all this stuff is going to be part of the evaluation. I think Kevin Stefanski said around the rookie minicamp that everything these guys do gets evaluated. And with quarterback, everything is under such a microscope, especially for a rookie when you have to get acclimated to the NFL. You have to get acclimated to being a professional and, having different teammates, guys who have been through so many things in the NFL, and trying to inspire them and make them believe in you as a rookie quarterback. Obviously, going back to the examples that Dan Orlovsky and Louis Riddick reporting at, Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson were the prime examples. Jalen Hurts, I don't know if I agree with that just because he didn't really play till late in his rookie season. But I think, again, like I said earlier, if you're going to play one of these guys, it's because they're just way better than Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. And I think both Flacco and Pickett can at least be serviceable. We saw what Flacco did at the end of 2023. I said that's not sustainable. I think you get somewhere in the middle with Joe Flacco. And with Kenny Pickett, I think he should fit better in this scheme than he did in Pittsburgh, which really, the offense around him just wasn't quite so good in his first 2 seasons. Certainly being in a more quarterback-friendly offense, it'll be interesting to see how he plays and if Kevin Stefanski, if Pickett is the starter, can unlock a better version of him. But again, it comes down to how you practice. And I think like you said, if either one of these rookies has got to start, they got to make it clear and obvious by the end of training camp that they are the guy and that they give them the best chance to win, hands down.
So the other thing is the bye comes in week 9, which it's not bad. And then after the bye, you've got the Jets, Ravens, Raiders, Niners, Titans. So it's a little bit more manageable than, Ravens, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Steelers defensively. The Bengals defense is the Bengals defense. Not great, but they're going to score some points.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is basically their offense in the best way to put it. I mean, their defense is, can you keep up with us in a track meet? That's the Bengals defense. But yeah, even looking at that schedule coming off the bye, the Jets, we don't know what they're going to be. Aaron Glenn coming in to New York. They still got a good defense. Can Justin Fields be the answer at quarterback? Who knows? The Browns have been able to beat the Ravens. I think each of the last couple seasons, I know they got them in 2024. The fact that they only won 3 games and 2 of them came against their division rivals, it's at least something to take out of that season. The Raiders, we don't know quite where they're going to be. Obviously, new head coach Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, their quarterback. Niners seems like they're going through a bit of a transition. We'll see if they can get healthy next season. And then, yeah, obviously that end of the season, Bills, Steelers, Bengals, that's obviously going to be a very difficult stretch. But I mean, that's just what it is for the Browns, who play in arguably the toughest division of football. You're going to have one of the toughest schedules if you're the worst team in that division. That's just, the nature of 1/30 games being against teams like the Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers, who are competing for the playoffs. In the case of Ravens and Steelers, who just went to the playoffs last season.
Yeah, and this year they play the NFC North, which is probably right up there with the AFC North, because you're talking about the Vikings, the Bears, who are greatly improved, Packers, and the Lions. This is interesting as well. So these are the teams that have no primetime games. It is the Browns, the Saints, and the Titans. So all three, what do they all three have in common? Unsettled quarterback situations or heavy rookie quarterback situations. So the NFL is telling you what they thought about this group of rookie quarterbacks without saying it. Cam Ward doesn't have a primetime game. Tyler Shuck, who was up there, doesn't have a primetime game. Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel don't have primetime games. Now, they do have the London game, but that's based on a rotation more than anything. So the NFL, normally you would see the top pick, our quarterback. We're going to see Caleb Williams. We're going to see Jaden Daniels. They don't have that this year.
Yeah, I think it's like the big thing with the quarterbacks in the draft. I mean, we talked about for months that this class was obviously a step down from what it had been, in 2024 when we had 6 guys go in the first 12 picks. I mean, I think we can all agree that there's no universe Shedeur Sanders based on pure talent alone being a 5th-round pick. But I think, obviously, with the way it is right now with the Browns, obviously, the NFL is going to make him earn it. And I do think there's logic behind that. I mean, the Browns were the 2nd worst team in the NFL last season, 3-14, a team that couldn't score the football outside of, the handful of games Jameis Winston had. So, I mean, it's not just they were bad last season, they were bad and they couldn't score. And, if they just weren't a compelling product last season, unfortunately for them in the NFL. And if you're not a compelling product, how are you going to sell it if you're the NFL or ESPN, say, for Monday Night Football to a national audience that's, looking to see what's on TV Monday night? They see, it's not exactly an exciting matchup. So Browns got to go out and earn it, and say if they are surprised this season, say Shedeur Sanders looks really good, and then all of a sudden you look at the second half of that schedule, then all of a sudden you have some flex options to play around with, and teams get flexed in and out of prime time all the time. So it's just a case of Browns got to, if they want that spotlight, they got to go out and earn it.
So these are from Caesars Sportsbooks, the 2025 odds. So for the Browns, projected win total 5.6 to make the playoffs, plus 800 means you bet 100, you get 800. Win the division, plus 2,600. Win the conference, plus 9,000. And to win the Super Bowl, plus 20,000. You look at the schedule, and yeah, it's probably a 6-7 win team if they don't. If they turn the ball over like they did last year, they may win 2 or 3 games again. They're gonna have to take care of the football. It is a tough schedule.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, obviously, those win totals are very low, but I think from a Browns perspective, the way you have to look at last season was I feel like it's going to be hard for this team to be that bad again. And the reason I say that is because by a lot of different metrics, you can look at the Browns had arguably two of the worst, if not the two worst quarterbacks in football last season, starting the majority of their games. And if you're going to have net negative quarterback play for the vast majority of the season, combined with a running game that didn't work and at times they didn't try to make it work. They didn't try to run the ball at all certain times. When you have those things compound together, it's a snowball effect, as I talked about before. When you have bad offense, you keep throwing your defense out there. Even the best defenses are going to get exhausted. Even if you had, say, the 85 Bears defense, you keep throwing them out there after 3-play offensive drives, they're going to wear down over the course of games and over a season. So the Browns are going to, like you said, they're going to need to protect the football. And they're also going to need to possess the football, go on drives. And, that was a big point. That was why I kept saying for this offseason, one thing they needed to do was to rebuild the running game. How it's all going to play out, obviously, we're going to have to see. But that win total of 5.6 just reflects on the fact that there's just a lot of unanswered questions and uncertainty regarding this football team that, needs to play out on Sundays and starting in September.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will continue talking Browns. Some non-first round offensive rookies who could be stars. Sports4CLE, be right back.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Greg Rosenthal with some of the free agents that are still out there. This is from the Ross Tucker podcast.
One of my big takeaways from the draft every year is we do this thing where we just expect all the drafted players to come in and be their best selves and make a big impact. And the reality is more than half of them aren't going to help your team that much this year, even in the first couple of rounds. And that there are many players that are available right now, as you mentioned, Ross, who will have a bigger impact on the 2025 season than about half the first-round picks. Now, if I'm going off my list, Asante Samuel Jr. is out there. There was some buzz tying him to Minnesota. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Amari Cooper is out there. Like, Amari Cooper can possibly help a team, I think. Keenan Allen still out there. We talked about Rodgers. I mean, I think as quarterbacks go, J.K. Dobbins is out there. There's a number of players that are still out there. Zadarius Smith is another one that's out there that could come in, I think, and help.
So, Tim, do any of those free agents pique your interest for the Browns?
I still say Keenan Allen, I just think with these two young quarterbacks and, questions about the depth at receiver behind Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, I think it's worth bringing in Keenan Allen, seeing what he's got. I think the Browns could benefit from having a savvy veteran receiver who may not have the same gear he had early on in his career, but still knows how to get open, still knows how to have a role in the offense and have an impact in the offense. Maybe kind of a lesser. I think what you would hope for is if you added Keenan Allen is that he could be a lesser version of what Jarvis Landry did for the Browns when they acquired him from the Dolphins in 2018. And we saw just the massive impact Jarvis Landry had on that football team and really helping Baker Mayfield grow as a rookie quarterback. So I just think adding another veteran there, depth, competition at receiver, I think that's just going to help that room get tougher and stronger as a group. And I think it would just help those two quarterbacks knowing that they have a veteran safety blanket who's been there and done that so many times that anytime they get in trouble, they can just look for Keenan Allen. And he's a guy who they can trust that if they put the football in that area, Keenan Allen's going to go and bring it down for them.
So this is from ESPN.com. Non-round one offensive rookies who could star this year. Tyler Shuck, they have the quarterback for the Saints. Harvey, the running back for the Broncos. Offensive guard for the Dolphins. They say Quinshon Judkins for the Browns and Travion Henderson, former teammate at Ohio State with the Patriots. Judkins is a guy that's intriguing. He looked faster than and I knew he'd be fast. He's football fast too, though.
Yeah, no question about it. I thought it was fun to watch him at Ohio State. You know, he and Travion Henderson were a great combination, and obviously the Browns getting him when they did 36 overall tells you that, you know, they feel like he can start pretty much day one, and I don't necessarily disagree with that assessment. I probably would have gone Travion Henderson over Judkins just because I feel like Travion has shown more ability to be explosive. But if you're from a Browns perspective, I'm looking at it as a guy who can get about 15 to 22 carries a game, you know, constantly be a player who's running downhill, tough to tackle, physical presence. And the Browns really didn't have any of those things in the running game last season because Jerome Ford is a speed guy, but he's not exactly a guy who's going to just, you know, 3rd and 1, you're going to give him the ball. He's going to, you know, plow through the middle of a defense potentially for a first down. So that's where I think Quinshon Judkins kind of fills that role. There's a lot of Nick Chubb comparisons. I caution those comparisons because maybe it's more stylistic than, you know, talent edge. I certainly think Judkins can be a quality starting running back in the NFL. Maybe, you know, I certainly can flirt with the top 10 potentially and maybe higher. Maybe he's better in the NFL than he is in college. But I think from a Browns perspective, certainly it shouldn't take him long to see the field in 2025, maybe even as the day one starter at running back.
So when you look at the Browns and success this year, what is if they're going to be successful, so 500-ish, what needs to happen?
I think one of the big things I look at is the offensive line's got to stay healthy. I mean, we've seen it for the last 2 seasons, you know, Jedrick Wills, you know, going down with injuries. Dawand Jones had injuries. Jack Conklin, you know, his return to 2024, you know, he had to get through an injury. And the good thing for the Browns was, you know, Jack Conklin was healthy, and that was a big positive for this Browns team. And when you look at the depth chart, obviously they got the 4 veterans up there: Bitonio, Posick, Teller, and Conklin, and then Dawand Jones at left tackle. You know, what kind of condition is he going to be coming off his second injury to the same knee in 2 years? If he can be, you know, relied upon as far as health is concerned, and he can stay out there, I think he's got a chance to be a pretty good offensive tackle. And then from there, you know, continue to develop the offensive line depth, continue to find depth behind that offensive line, because ultimately guys are going to get injured up front. But if that group can stay healthy as long as possible, I think that can really help as much as anything. And then, you know, also looking at another thing, you know, protecting the football for quarterbacks. I think we've seen so many times that be a problem for the Browns. But I look at that's one reason I feel like Kenny Pickett gets talked up so much by the Browns. He doesn't really turn the football over. Yeah, he doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns, but he's also not going to necessarily put the ball in harm's way too often. So it's kind of, you know, the double-edged sword of maybe a little more conservative quarterback play might not be a bad idea, at least to make sure that you're not putting the defense out there with sudden change turnovers. So I think those are 2 things that stand out. And of course, running the football, you know, getting back to the identity that they had with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt of being a team that can, you know, create gains on the ground, you know, get above that success rate more often. And with that combination of Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, you got powerful runners who got speed. It's going to be interesting to see how those guys translate to the NFL and how productive they can be. But by getting those 2 guys, they've clearly said we're gonna work harder to be more of a running football team, and it comes down to how those 2 guys and an offensive line perform.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, Tim Bielik. Make sure you check him out, Plain Dealer or cleveland.com. We will continue talking Browns. Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature straight ahead. We also head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. Be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Comment. Send Kenny Pickett to New Orleans. Cleveland sucks. You guys know what you did when you drafted Shedeur Sanders. Send Kenny Pickett to New Orleans. Let him rejoin Kellen Moore and let him go from there. Peace.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature. Damon, I know you wrote an article, Dawgs by Nature, how Derek Carr's retirement could impact the Browns quarterback situation. Take us through that.
Yeah, so basically, you know, with Derek Carr retiring, that leaves New Orleans with Tyler Shuck as their presumed starter for the season, who was a rookie who was drafted 40th overall by the Saints. So, you know, I think the Saints and Kellen Moore, the new head coach there, they want to give Shuck every opportunity to win the job and to become the starter. But at the end of the day, you know, if for some reason they aren't comfortable with Shuck putting that on him week one, I could see a scenario where Kenny Pickett could become very attractive to New Orleans to come in and be the kind of the bridge starter until Shuck is actually ready to become the starter there.
Yeah, well, let's listen. This is Tom Pelissero from NFL Network. Rich Eisen showed what he's hearing about the Browns quarterback situation.
Just going into this, you would say Joe Flacco has the leg up because the coaches know him, because he knows that system. He's functioned in that offense before. Kevin Stefanski's gone to the playoffs with him. He knows that he can trust Joe. Realistically, Joe's probably not starting 17 games this year. You know, he's been a very durable quarterback through the course of his career. But, you know, the odds that at 41 years old, I believe he is, that he's going to play the entire season, you'd probably say that that's an unlikely type of a scenario. So based on what I hear, it sounds like it's wide open. It sounds like they're going in with open minds into this competition. The real question is going to be, it's one thing for, and I know that Kevin Stefanski said, don't read too much into the reps and rookie minicamp. It's very, very early. There's plenty of reps to go around. Well, as you get deeper into the summer and those veterans come back with Flacco and with Pickett, Deshaun Watson's not going to be ready for anything in the offseason. We'll see if he ultimately is able to do anything on the field even during the course of the regular season here. But when you've got four guys, there's reasons the teams, a lot of teams philosophically want to pare that down and really roll with three in training camp. So very quickly as we get into the OTA portion, you'll see how they're dividing those reps. You'll see what the order is. I would anticipate just going in based on how, you know, these things tend to go. It'll be Flacco, then Pickett, then Gabriel, and then Shedeur Sanders getting the fourth reps or splitting the third reps or however they do it here.
Here's the thing that I keep coming back to, and people are probably getting sick of me saying this, but they had the opportunity to sign Joe Flacco all offseason. They traded for Kenny Pickett before they signed Joe Flacco. That tells me they saw something in Kenny Pickett. Flacco was out there. They made the trade to acquire Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's going to get a legitimate chance, and he might be the guy taking the first team reps.
Yeah, that's the way I would read it coming in. You know, I think that you're right there. I think that they do see something in Kenny Pickett. They obviously dug into that quarterback class where he went in the first round at number 20 overall. So I think there is a level of belief that they can actually maximize his abilities and talent playing with Kevin Stefanski. And I think the Browns do want to get a good look at it. And I think in the end, ultimately, this all comes down to the comfort level and of the rookie quarterbacks of whether or not the Browns would even possibly consider moving on from one of the veterans. And, I think that Joe Flacco, his role in this scenario is that he is like the ultimate insurance policy. And I think if you're the Browns, you're hoping that you don't have to break the glass and use him this season, but he is there in case you do need to.
Yeah, and again, I get the Kenny Pickett hasn't thrown. I think he's thrown for 2 touchdowns in a game once, but he's 15-10. He's 15-10 as a starter in the NFL. So
yeah, I mean, he's a pretty functional guy, and he has some good athleticism and some tools to work with there. So I think the Browns are interested to see what they can get out of him.
So you also wrote an article for Dawgs by Nature about the quarterback battle. First true quarterback competition since. So take us through that.
Yeah, so in my mind, this is the first true quarterback competition the Browns have actually had since 2017, and that was the year that Cody Kessler was around with Brock Osweiler, and those guys all kind of went at it. And this is definitely the first competition that we've seen under Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. We've always had a guy that's been anointed as the quarterback. Of course, Baker Mayfield was that guy when Stefanski first arrived, and then they went out and pursued Deshaun Watson. So for me, I think this is a unique opportunity for them to actually have the competition go on, and it'll be a true competition. And the one thing I know is that the guys in that locker room really all have an interest in who's going to win the starting quarterback job for the Browns. They want to get the bad taste out of their mouth from last season, the 3-14 record and all of that. So they're highly tuned into who's going to win. And I think that if Stefanski and the coaching staff utilizes this as an opportunity to kind of set the example for every position group, the rest of those guys in the locker room are watching the quarterbacks to see who's working the hardest, who's coming in early, who's staying late, who's putting in that work. And if I think one of these young guys can really impress in that regard, that's going to really just drive competition and create the culture the Browns really want to have.
I forgot about Kessler and Osweiler. There's a reason that was blocked out of my mind.
The good old days, Dave.
Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at the Browns' schedule, talk a little bit about that. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature. Colin Cowherd from The Herd with Colin Cowherd. An interesting read of the Browns quarterback situation.
The Browns have is what I would call the Buffalo Bills used to have this years ago pre-Josh Allen. Low sports self-esteem. And years ago, Buffalo, Ryan Fitzpatrick in Buffalo got AFC Offensive Player of the Month, and in October they signed him to a 6-year contract. Oh, my God, somebody likes us. So Jimmy Haslam, who's got some money, he drafted Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, and Deshaun Watson. Those were his calls. Headlines. So Shedeur Sanders at the Thursday, Friday, Saturday 3-day rookie minicamp, there's a lot of speculation. He wanted Shedeur Sanders. The staff drafted Dillon Gabriel, Oregon, 2 rounds earlier. And they were doing that not because they necessarily loved Dillon Gabriel. They liked him, but they thought it would stop their impulsive owner from forcing them to draft in round 4 Shedeur Sanders.
Okay, Damon, I preface this by saying, remember, this is the guy that 7 or 8 years ago said Ben Simmons was going to be the face of the NBA and that LeBron could fade into the background. It was like 8 years ago. I don't even know where to begin. Did Jimmy Haslam influence that? We've been told no. relative to quarterbacks, if you don't have one, like the Bills didn't before Josh Allen, you do everything you can to find one, like bringing 4 guys in for a quarterback competition. That's what he's overlooking.
Yeah, I really agree there. I think that, Haslam has been guilty of meddling in the past for sure, and some of the decisions that were made at quarterback over the years. However, in this situation, I don't think that's the case. After taking some accountability for what happened with the Deshaun Watson situation, I think that Haslam wants to do everything in his power to support Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. They know that the pressure is coming. So they obviously need to take swings at quarterback, and I think that that's what they did, and I think that's all it comes down to. I know that we've seen the reports that Andrew Berry was, making phone calls during the 4th round to actually try to trade up to get, to select Shedeur. So I think that they do really like him, as well as they, obviously they have to like Gabriel Moore coming in, based on where they drafted him. But I think at the end of the day, the opportunity was too good to pass up. And the Browns got, who the second best quarterback in the draft, in my opinion, no matter where they ended up taking him. And there were things that obviously led to that. Hopefully that those things, the Browns can work around those and get him to a place on the field where he can perform at a very high level. And hopefully, it all pays off for Cleveland.
Well, here's the thing. They needed a quarterback. Kevin Stefanski said they were going to look everywhere for quarterbacks. So it doesn't surprise me that they drafted 2. I was one of the guys that said draft 2. And so they got 2 that they think they can work with. You got to find a quarterback. Let's take a look at the schedule. And it's not an easy schedule. It's a pretty brutal schedule, especially at the beginning. You go Bengals, Ravens, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Steelers. Then you got the Dolphins and Patriots before the bye. And you see Jets, Ravens, Raiders, Titans, Bears, Bills, Steelers, Bengals. Remember, this is the 4th place schedule in the AFC North, and it's pretty brutal. They're going to have to play significantly better than they did last year to get 6, 7, 8 wins.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a challenge for sure. The first half of that schedule is really tough, and the first 4 games are absolutely brutal. So the Browns, they'll have to come out early, and hopefully they can establish themselves and be the kind of team that they want to be. I think that they're definitely going to have to lean on the run game early. They're going to have to play physical football. And, the defense will really have to carry them through that first half of the season. So hopefully the Browns can do that. And that's got to be mission number 1. And I think that I'm seeing some really positive signs by the way the Browns and the coaching staff are handling the offseason, that's their intention.
So you wrote an article, deeper look at the Browns' schedule, underlying under-discussed concern. Take us through that.
Yeah, so it was basically taking a look at all of the Browns' opponents on the schedule and determining the rest edge for each game. And so basically the rest edge is essentially the number of days or extra days that a team would have to prepare for their opponent. So for instance, in week number 2, the Green Bay Packers play on Thursday night. And the Browns don't play until Sunday. And then of course they play a week later. So the Packers are going to have a +3 advantage on the rest edge, and the Browns will be -3 for that game. That's one instance. And the Browns actually have 5 games this year that there's either a deficit or an advantage for them. And overall on the season, they're at a -7. And most of that is the schedule makers didn't do them any favors during week 6 when they come back from overseas in London. So they'll come back to face the Steelers that week, and the Steelers have a bye the previous week. So the Steelers have an extra 7 days of rest to prepare for them for the Browns, and the Browns unfortunately will have to make the trip across the pond.
So when you look at this roster, what's the biggest area of concern other than quarterback's got to be everybody's biggest concern and has been for a while. But other than that on this roster, what do you see?
Yeah, so for the most part, I think they've cobbled it together as much as possible, especially along the offensive line. I do think there are two ways to really look at it. First of all, you can either look at it as, do they have enough top end talent at the position, or also do they have enough depth at the position? So for me, I think when you're looking at the overall talent at a position, I think that safety kind of still sticks out, even though they made 2 veteran additions. So they are going to be relying on Ronnie Hickman, in my opinion, to fill that starter role. So it could be that they're a little bit higher on him, and maybe some of the other young guys in the room, like a Chris Edmonds or the undrafted free agent Donovan McMillan. However, if you're looking at depth, to me, another position that stands out is like the tight end. Backup tight end position. I think that could become a real vulnerability if David Njoku were to suffer an injury during the season, or if he were going to miss any time. So I would like to have somebody in that kind of tight end 2, tight end 3 role with Harold Fannin alongside of him to help out there with the depth. And then, of course, wide receiver is another position where I think you can question the overall talent, especially across the starters. Cedric Tillman, they're hoping that they get the same sample size out of the 4 games that they got from him in 2024. And of course, they're still going to be relying on some guys to step up, like David Bell or Jamari Thrash. So that could be an area that turns out to ultimately be a concern.
Before I let you go, how good do you think the defense can be? When you look at adding a guy like Graham and Schlesinger, and you got Wright coming, defensive front 7 could be really good.
Yeah, I think the defensive line is the deepest group, defensive tackle, defensive end. And I think that's where the Browns are really prioritizing spending the extra money and spending the extra resources, because I think that those guys actually play more snaps than you would see like a 4th wide receiver or even a 3rd tight end. So that's maybe why those positions feel a little bit neglected. So the defensive line to me is really, really solid. I like Schlesinger in the linebacker core. Of course, losing JOK hurts, but I think if the secondary can stay healthy, then the defense can be, a top 10 unit once again. And the pressure is certainly on the defense to carry the team this year.
Damon Wolfe, Dawgs by Nature, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Damon.
No problem, Dave. Thank you.
Damon Wolfe, make sure you check him out. Good stuff. Dawgs by Nature. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Straight ahead, Sports4CLE. Be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers' disappointing ending to the season as they were eliminated in the Eastern Conference semifinals again this year. 4 games won by the Pacers. ESPN's NBA analyst Brian Windhorst on what the Cavs need to address moving forward.
The Pacers' entire game plan was to feast on the Cavs' small guards. So that's what they got to address. To me, the story of the series was on the defensive end with the ability for the Pacers to penetrate and kick and dominate. There was also a factor on the offensive end, like I said, because the Cavs got taken out of their offense repeatedly with the pressure. But part of that was because their big physical guards, intimidated the Cavs' smaller guards. So the Cavs have to look and make a decision. And I don't know, I'm not even saying that they do anything because I do believe that they're an excellent team. There's a contender there. They have to figure out whether or not they can win or if there's a system that they can win where they have these small guards, because that's where they're vulnerable. That's where it showed up the most more than anything.
So welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com as well as Full Court Cleveland. Sam, those are the kind of things that get exposed in a series. Any weakness you have is going to get magnified in a 7-game series against a quality opponent.
Yeah, I think part of that, and Brian Windhorst is absolutely right there. It was very clear that, the Pacers' size in the backcourt, as well as their ability to throw big men, while Kenny Atkinson was kind of platooning Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, the Pacers had a few more, able to not just Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, but was able to throw in Thomas Bryant in there. They just had size and physicality. But Brian Windhorst is right in the sense that a lot of that really impacted the backcourt more than almost the front court because of the Pacers, not just height-wise guards, but they were very physical, and that clearly threw the Cavs out of sorts. So I'm with Mr. Windhorst. I think that they're going to stand a good chance to run it back or mostly back, but I think that they will go out and address some of these needs that they saw were flaws during the Pacers series around the edges. And maybe, Jalen Tyson takes another step after his rookie year. He's a big guard. He's physical. So those are some of the things that you're hoping for as they move forward next season.
The other thing is much like the series the last couple of years where they lost, they got caught playing the other team's style of basketball. How do you avoid that, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, part of it was the Pacers taking them out of what they wanted to do, but part of it was them getting away from what was successful. If you looked at the regular season, when they went on that 15-game winning streak and then the 12-game winning streak and the 16-game winning streak, what was working there was the ball was really zipping. Well, the Pacers really defended physically. Cavs spent a lot of time dribbling around, looking for the next guy. Who's open? Well, nobody's open. Now what do I do? So there wasn't that ball movement in the Pacers series that we saw all regular season, as well as the Miami Heat series. So I think you have to find ways to overcome that. Now, there were times when they built that 19-point lead, for instance, in Game 5, where they stopped making shots. I think part of that was maybe a little bit of fatigue from just trying to get the ball up the floor against those physical Pacers guards. But, the way that you play your best basketball when it means the most is that you play the basketball that you were playing when you were at your best, right, during the regular season. The Cavs got away from that. They got away from some things that were working in the first half of that Game 5, which was obviously a whole lot of Evan Mobley. Now, Pacers deserve credit for kind of, collapsing on Mobley in the second half and forcing the Cavs to shoot jumpers. If the Cavs have made those shots, which a lot of times they do make, if they had made those, that would have taken the Pacers right out of their game plan. But, Max Strus, I believe, was 0 of 9. Donovan Mitchell, 1 of 11 on threes. They couldn't hit outside shots. And that's a big part of who they were. That's a big part of any NBA team's success in today's game. And when you're missing outside shots, that really just threw them for a loop. And they didn't have any – their defense was not good enough all playoffs to overcome not being able to hit a perimeter shot.
So I know you wrote an article for HoopsWire. Cavs face big off-season decisions with very little room to maneuver. Take us through that and kind of what you're looking at there in that article.
Yeah, they don't have, with the new CBA rules and layman's terms, it is incredibly difficult to make really big trades. We see the fan reaction and trade Jared Allen, trade Darius Garland. Those are, those things are doable, but you just have to get incredibly creative when you're a team like the Cavs who has a lot of salary constraints because of the new labor rules, which went into play, I believe, before the start of last season. So it really, really hampers what you can do. If the Cavs run it back, say, they're probably going to only be able to, and they're able to sign Ty Jerome. I'm assuming potentially Sam Merrill. Those are the two unrestricted free agents. The Cavs are able to sign both of them. They're really only going to be able to pay veteran minimum deals to fill out the bench because of these salary constraints. Now, that said, if they do trade Jared Allen, for instance, I don't think they will, but if they do, or if they traded a Darius Garland, they have to take the same amount of salary back. So that's not going to help them financially. They would still only be able to sign veteran minimum guys to fill out the bench, assuming they re-sign Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill. I think they really want Ty Jerome back. I think that they're going to, go all out to get him. I don't know so much Sam Merrill. I can't get a feel for that yet. It's too soon to say. But if they don't sign Sam Merrill, they're going to, it's going to have to be somebody who would take a similar salary to him, which in the NBA terms isn't much. So they're very limited in what they can do when it comes, to filling out the bench. Even if they trade Isaac Okoro or Dean Wade, they have to take back matching salary. They can't go over what those guys are making. So I think there's a lot of things in play, a lot of things. The Cavs, Kobe Altman and GM Mike Gansey saw the same things that we did. So they're going to have to evaluate and say, what areas do we need to improve and how do we go about going and getting those pieces if they feel they need them.
So you also wrote an article for HoopsWire about top trade targets or targets for the Cavs. Give us a couple of names and what they would do, you think?
Well, according to that article, Kelly Oubre Jr. from the Sixers, the Cavs have liked him for some time. So I think probably that's where that chatter is coming from. I'm sure that he's going to be available because Philadelphia's disappointing season, they want upgrades. And that would be a guy that I don't know that the Cavs have their eyes set on because he is a big guard now. He's 6'7" shooting guard. And, he's very streaky, but he can fill it up at times. And he's a very physical player in terms of his defense. So I don't know if it's him specifically, but guys like him. We saw Jock Reith from the Portland Trailblazers was mentioned in that article. And that, when I say the Cavs have to go get a power forward or backup center type, a la Thomas Bryant, Reith from the Blazers would come at the right price. He's very physical underneath. He could give you 15, 20 minutes a game without hurting you. I don't know if they're going to target those guys specifically, but if you look, those are the type of players that I think they're going to look to get. A guard with size who's physical, and it might not be somebody who's playing 35, 40 minutes a game. It's probably going to be somebody who's playing 15 minutes a game, and then maybe some games not getting in the game at all. Same thing with a backup center. They know they need to shore that up because I think Jared Allen wore down toward the end of the season, as did I don't think Mobley wore down, but I think that those two guys could use more of a breather than they were afforded because the Cavs just didn't have that piece, the big man that they felt comfortable putting into playoff situations.
Before I let you go, you listened to all of the exit interviews and the post-game stuff. What do you get a sense? Where are the players' heads at collectively here?
I think it's extreme disappointment. I think even when they were down 3-1, a lot of people thought they could come back because Kenny Atkinson kept saying, get game 5, and then the pressure's on Indiana in game 6, and Kenny Atkinson kept saying, we got 2 more at home, 2 of those final 3 at home. So I thought that they really thought they could come back. Then they built that 19-point lead in game 5, and I thought, look, this is a series again. I knew Indiana would make a run, but I didn't know that they would win. So I think that, look, everybody's disappointed. But I think that these are, I always say it was a bad experience, but it was an experience. And that's how you have to go through loads of this loss and pain and over and over, I believe, to get to the top. We've seen this throughout the course of NBA history. Michael Jordan's Bulls unable to beat the bad boys Pistons, the Denver Nuggets of Nikola Jokic. Jokic was in Denver 8 years before he got a championship with the same core. So it's not easy to win a championship. And I think that these guys are learning difficult lessons, which will only benefit them along the way. And that's where I think their heads are. It's like, well, people are going to write us off again next year, and that's fine. And they're going to keep writing us off till we go out and prove it. So it's just what happened this year is I'm sure extra motivation for them.
Sam Amico, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me, and we'll chat at you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, make sure you check him out. He's the host of Full Court Cleveland. He also writes for hoopswire.com. Always really good and insightful NBA coverage, especially the Cavs. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.